beautiful planet in the Milky Way galaxy known as Earth. She is a great mother, nurturing and sustaining many billions of organisms, her cycles of life apparent with every breath. Her wrinkled skin is a roadmap of lines, born beneath the surface, the face of a wise elder, deeply etched with rich stories and experiences from times past. Her interior is a mysterious and fiery place, accessible to us only through molten portals that dot her surface and shape her curves, inspiring universal poetry and prayer, defining a network of meridians, veins pulsing blood out from the heart of her core to explode into the stratosphere. Volcanoes are unpredictable and uncontrollable. They grow and evolve. They breathe. They have personalities. Being in their powerful presence is both profoundly humbling and overwhelmingly intoxicating. It's no wonder that people throughout the ages have developed relationships with them. Around the world, volcanoes are still worshipped today by people of all walks of life. Are myths simply fanciful tales with no basis in reality? Or are there deeper truths woven into these age-old stories? I invite you to meet some of the more sacred and influential volcanoes of our world and decide for yourself what smoldering embers these legends contain. Our tour begins with a map. Here we can see some details of Earth's present-day skin, the terrain of both land and ocean, the boundaries between plates, and locations of earthquakes, meteor impacts, and volcanoes that have been active in the last 10,000 years. There are over 1,500 volcanoes on this map, indicated by the red triangles. Throughout time, active volcanoes have been considered sacred, but a handful are so special, so powerful, that they have an ethereal hold on our imaginations. The stories of these places are also unique and remain strong despite the passage of time. I researched the mythologic archetypes of each one of these 1,500 volcanoes and found just around 100 whose personalities stand out among the rest. These were grouped according to the nature of their notoriety. Some of these volcanoes are the homes of the ancestors, or of the gods, or of mythical creatures. Others are rumored to be places where the lower realms can be accessed. Still others are navels, or world trees, or the birthplace of a culture. The first volcano on our tour is Mount Fuji, the tallest and most sacred volcano in Japan. Visible from Tokyo, her symmetrical beauty is renowned worldwide. The Buddhists consider her summit to be the pinnacle of meditation, a place beyond this world. In the indigenous Shinto religion, Fuji is home to the goddess Sengen, who rewards those pure of heart. Fuji is thought by many to be an axis mundi point, a mystical place where the veil of illusion can be lifted and other dimensions explored. The axis mundi is the central spine of the universe, the world tree, the place of meeting between the physical and spiritual worlds. Mount Fuji last erupted in 1708, but she is waking up again. Recent evidence indicates that very high pressures are building inside her magma chamber, and an eruption appears imminent. Let's move now some 3,000 miles due west, across South Korea and mainland China to another axis mundi point, the rugged, remote, and mystical Kunlun Mountains on the northwestern boundary of the Tibetan Plateau. At 19,055 feet, Mount Kunlun is the highest volcano in the northern hemisphere. And like her summit shrouded in the clouds, her kingdom is shrouded in mystery. Mount Kunlun is also a mythical place, the home of gods and goddesses, and her exact location is elusive. Stories speak of a cosmic mountain, a pillar of the universe, whose base penetrates far into the earth and whose peak reaches for the stars. Rumored to be home of the Queen Mother of the West, her lands are a magical paradise where one can indulge in the peaches of immortality and dance between the worlds. The last eruption in the Kunlun volcanic field was a small, unexpected burp in 1951. It has been quiet since. Kunlun is sometimes associated with another elusive and mysterious place, mythical Mount Meru, the central axis of the universe in Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain cosmologies. Mount Meru rises thousands of miles high out of a cosmic ocean. It has its base in hell and its summit in heaven, where enlightened beings live blissfully in a golden city. Many mandalas and temples throughout Asia have been created in the likeness of Mount Meru, to both honor and call in the wisdom of this Shambhala to our physical world. From the Kunlun Mountains, we journey southeast to yet another Axis Mundi point, Mount Semeru on the island of Java, one of the most sacred volcanoes in Indonesia, whose name and mythology are also linked to mythical Mount Meru. Continually active since 1967, Mount Semeru is said to be a dwelling place of deities, created once upon a time when the Hindu god Shiva ordered that a piece of Mount Meru be used to anchor Java, which was floating around and shaking profusely, causing problems to the local inhabitants. These three volcanoes share the unique, powerful, and enduring legend as being places to transcend dimensions through a cosmic axis. Together they form a nearly perfect, downward-facing equilateral triangle parallel to the equator, which we will call the Axis Mundi triangle. The equilateral triangle is an ancient symbol of wholeness and stability for many religions and spiritual traditions, and the downward-facing triangle historically symbolizes the divine feminine and the element water. If we overlay a mirror image of our Axis Mundi triangle on itself, we see a hexagram, an ancient, sacred symbol from traditions around the world which represents the Axis Mundi itself. The hexagram is used universally to represent balance, completion, and supreme consciousness as the yin and yang, unity of the masculine and feminine energies when ether descends into form. We see it as the Star of David, the Seal of Solomon, and the Hindu Shatkona. It appears in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, the seal of the U.S. $1 bill, the Anahata Heart Chakra, and as a 2D representation of a star tetrahedron, the Merkaba, a force field of the human body, which when activated is said to act as a vehicle for ascension along the cosmic axis. This hexagram is situated on a highly spiritual part of the globe, a colorful mixture of animistic indigenous religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and mysticism. Its 6 points are anchored on Tibet, Mongolia, Japan, Micronesia, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. Legend has it that the magical tear-shaped island of Sri Lanka was formed when the apex of Mount Meru broke off and tumbled to the earth's surface, blown by the wind god Vayu. The hexagram is a fractal shape. It can repeat to infinity. In 3 dimensions, it's a building block for some of the most fundamental geometries in the cosmos. If we visualize our hexagram as a star tetrahedron in 3 dimensions, it intersects the Earth's surface through its center, extending thousands of miles both above the Earth and into her core, almost like Mount Meru, connecting the upper and lower realms along a cosmic axis. The very center of this shape is located in one of the most powerful and mysterious countries in the world, China, very close to the powerhouse city of Hong Kong, home to some 7 million people. Like the DNA double helix, we can visualize the union of masculine and feminine energies within this star tetrahedron as 6 golden mean spirals, a logarithmic form seen throughout the universe, one for each point, twirling in opposing directions through the central channel, as a 3-dimensional axis mundi, a giant reflection of the myths themselves, creating a mandala like many found throughout the world. Another name for such energy is kundalini, twirling serpents of life force, like rivers of lava that rise through our chakras through meditation, a journey described by many yogis as the ascent to Mount Meru, with divine union achieved when the spine is energetically aligned with the cosmic axis. Ascension and enlightenment are achieved at the summit, This sacred path is projected three-dimensionally from the Sri Yantra, the mother of all yantras, one of the most ancient and powerful mandalas, representing the timeless creative principle of the universe, with a seed shape of a downward-facing equilateral triangle, just like the axis mundi triangle we began with. Tucked on the mandala just outside our hexagram is a notorious area of sea known as the Devil's Triangle. This smaller version of the Bermuda Triangle is also known for mysterious disappearances and strange occurrences. We find that if we take the exact dimensions of our axis mundi triangle, shrink it by just over 2/3, rotate it 26 degrees, the same number of vertebrae as our inner spine, and place it halfway around the world in line with its unrotated top, also at 26 degrees north latitude, we have the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean. Like a paranormal crown of the cosmic backbone, the enigmatic Bermuda Triangle is shrouded in legend. At its westernmost corner, we find the intriguing geometric underwater rock formations of Bimini Road, which some believe are man-made relics from mythical Atlantis. We also find the mind-boggling Coral Castle, built secretly by a 100-pound Latvian immigrant named Ed Lietskalinen in the 1940s, who claims to have learned the secrets of the ancient pyramids, as he deftly maneuvered and carved blocks of limestone that weighed up to 30 tons each without assistance or modern machinery. The infamous Bermuda Triangle lies between the volcanoes Hekla in Iceland and Masaya in Nicaragua, both unusual and very active volcanoes known as gateways into the fiery regions of hell. Both have been quiet for several years but are showing signs of unrest. Hekla, which was last active in the year 2000, tends to have very large eruptions with little warning. It is thought to be the gathering place of witches, the doorway through which condemned souls enter the lower realms. In ancient times, Masaya had a bubbling lava lake in its crater, which was the site of human sacrifice to appease the evil spirits. It is now studied because of its similarity to Olympus Mons volcano on Mars, the largest volcano in our solar system. Only one other volcano in the whole world is known as the Gates of Hell, Erta Ali, in the Afar region of Ethiopia, one of the most remote, dangerous, and hottest places on Earth. Like Hekla and Masaya, Erta Ali is also a very active yet unusual volcano in a geologically complex area. These three volcanoes make an upward-pointing isosceles triangle, also parallel to the equator. We have now found two triangles on the Earth's surface, parallel to the equator, one equilateral and one isosceles, both created by volcanoes that share mythologic archetypes, connecting ancient sites and powerful cities. What does this mean? Does it mean anything? Is it all just coincidence? If it's not just coincidence, what do these shapes represent? One of the first things we notice is that these triangles do not account for the curvature of the Earth's surface. When we make that correction to the Gates of Hell triangle, the Bermuda Triangle is now anchored on its 3 points, and the resulting shape looks very similar to a Vesica Piscis cut in half, one of the most ancient symbols of duality arising from unity, the intersection of two circles, a space which holds the mythical seeds of creation and sacred geometry. Inscribed in the center of our Vesica Piscis is an eye, symbolic of a higher consciousness watching over the continual unfolding of the cosmos. When we invert our image, we see a stretched-out Vesica Piscis, as if it's growing along the mid-Atlantic ridge that runs through its center, a symbol of the original birth, which happens to coincide with a major axis of continual creation on our Earth's surface, a place where new land is being spilled onto the ocean floor on a daily basis as Europe and Africa move away from the Americas. It would seem that whatever the source of these shapes, it is not something that exists solely on the Earth's surface. What if we explore the idea that the lines defining our triangles are being projected onto the Earth's surface? It's an ancient theory that the Earth itself is a giant crystal, As above, so below, a macrocosm of the microcosm, whose structure creates an ordered grid of enhanced electromagnetic energy, connecting physical places on the surface through ley lines. To understand an energetic grid, we have to understand its language. Our ancestors, who were once much more in tune with the energies and rhythms of Earth than we are today, preserved their knowledge in symbols and stories. To discover if there is a deeper meaning to our triangles, perhaps we can find clues in the symbolism of the shapes themselves. As the hexagram reflects the mythology of the axis mundi, the upward-pointing triangle represents the divine masculine and the element of fire. Like the eye inside the Vesica Pisces, an ancient symbol of the omniscient divine masculine is the upward-facing isosceles triangle with an eye inscribed in the center. This is the eye of providence, the all-seeing biblical eye of God, the eye of the Son, of the Father. It originates from the eye of Horus in ancient Egyptian times. Christianity placed a triangle around the eye to represent the Trinity, a symbol that was adopted by the Freemasons, is associated with the Illuminati, and can be found on the U.S. $1 bill, among other places around the world. When we inscribe an eye in the center of our triangle, where the center of the eye is located at the universal constant, the phi ratio of the height of the triangle, and the diameter of the eye is equal to half the height of the triangle, we find some very interesting connections. But the most interesting volcanic feature on our eye is also an eye. A giant, reshot structure in the middle of the Sahara Desert called the Eye of Mauritania, constructed from concentric rings of all types of volcanic compositions. It's 30 miles across, such a scale that it can only be recognized from space. It's the only structure of its kind on the Earth and remains a geologic mystery. An eye for an eye. The eye inside a triangle is really a two-dimensional representation of an eye inside a pyramid, as can be seen on the US dollar bill, and is symbolic of the third eye, the eye of illumination that operates from inside the pineal gland, the seat of our soul, the God within. The three-dimensional tetrahedron pyramid is a Platonic solid, the universe's most stable geometric form. Like the ancient pyramids found along its borders, perhaps this pyramid, too, has a technological function. Pyramids are like antennae. They focus and channel light into spiraling vortexes, standing columnar waves of electromagnetic energy. The name itself, pyramid, means light in the middle, closely related to the symbolism of an eye in the middle of a triangle. The shape of a pyramid determines its function. The four-sided pyramid separates the unity of light into its positive and negative parts, creating a double spiral that flows in opposite directions, a balanced vortex. The tetrahedron, on the other side, channels light into a one-directional spin. Hekla, Erta Ali, and Messiah all share an interesting morphology, an elongated, broad profile made up of nested craters. When we draw lines along the axis of each volcano, we find that they point in a counterclockwise direction. This is a fitting flow, as the counterclockwise spin is thought to represent the transmission of masculine energy from the sun. So, again, what does all this mean? If we turn again to symbols and stories, we unfold a deeper meaning of the tetrahedron. As a symbol of a higher vibration, a trinity, a divine transmission, the birth of the name Yahweh in the Jewish tradition. Yet our tetrahedron is associated with a central eye and a mythology about being the gates of hell. Couple this with an overlapping general geography as the legendary lost civilization of Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean, rumored to be a highly evolved civilization that crashed into the sea when it became overrun by greed and immortality. And the strange connection of the Bermuda Triangle with a star tetrahedron halfway around the world. And we start to wonder if perhaps we're looking at something very real. When we examine a satellite image of Africa, we realize that the base of our Gates of Hell tetrahedron corresponds exactly with the southern boundary of the Sahara Desert. Recent research has revealed that up until 6,000 years ago, northern Africa was a lush and humid place. For some unknown reason, its weather patterns changed dramatically and abruptly to become the arid desert we know it as today, out of balance from an overabundance of fire. But what does it mean to be the gates of hell tetrahedron? And what happened 6,000 years ago that we appear to have lost record of? This is around the same time period as many of the ancient sites we've been looking at. Enigmatic stone circles, masterfully carved temples, giant pyramids. Who were these engineers and artists? Where did they go? The mythology that has survived appears to be defining a geographic location as a portal for darkness, a corrupted masculine of sorts, divinity that was somehow taken over by the dark side. Is this possibly around the same time that the feminine, intuitive left eye of Horus in Egyptian mythology started becoming confused with the masculine right eye of Horus, oftentimes referred to as the evil eye, a symbol associated with fear and power, distorted by the shadow of the masculine, creating a suppression of the divine feminine around the globe? What if, prior to this time, our tetrahedron was in fact a doorway to the divine masculine, the light that is the sun? Is it possible to return to that state of pure illumination by healing the inner divine masculine in ourselves as well as our world? Can we use this knowledge to transform the testosterone-laden, ego-driven energy that currently shapes our reality away from guns and violence and fear and back into peace, harmony, and balance? When we step back, we realize that a line drawn through the center of our eye connects with the top of our axis mundi triangle, falling along the same 35-degree north latitude as Mount Kunlun and Mount Fuji on the upper edge of the feminine tetrahedron half of our star tetrahedron. Interestingly, the ancient Silk Road more or less follows along this line between Europe and Asia, an ancient highway for not only goods but culture and religion as well. Our Gates of Hell Pyramid and Axis Mundi star tetrahedron are connected in other significant ways. Linking the corner of our eye with Sri Lanka, we again see the pyramids of Giza. We also find Mount Horeb in Egypt, the sacred location where it is said Moses received the 10 Commandments, a place worshipped in Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Another interesting connection begins at Hekla and travels through Central Europe. Gosek's Circle, Vienna, Nesbar on the Black Sea, and Cappadocia. Also in Turkey, we see some of the oldest known human-made religious structures. Göbekli Tepe, a 12,000-year-old buried megalithic complex created from giant blocks carved on a remote hillside. Moving through Mesopotamia, considered by many to be the cradle of Western civilization, we pass through a host of ancient places, including Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, the Great Ziggurat of Ur, the region's most well-preserved gigantic step pyramid built 4,000 years ago by the Sumerians. And across the Persian Gulf, we find Boomtown, Dubai, the glittering city of the United Arab Emirates, before crossing over the Arabian Sea to connect with the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron at Sri Lanka. These two connections from the Gates of Hell tetrahedron to the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron sandwich the western boundary of the Arabia Plate with the Mediterranean Sea, just north from the Red Sea. This isolated plate boundary moves through some of the world's longest inhabited, most politically volatile, spiritually significant lands, including the tumultuous Gaza Strip. Slightly inland, we find Petra in Jordan. Thousands of years old, this world wonder is famous for its elaborate architecture as giant temples carved straight into the cliffs. Just north, we find the holy city of Jerusalem and capital of Israel. Further north still, we pass through Baalbek in Lebanon, also several thousand years old and elegantly crafted with massive blocks, fit together with remarkable precision. The bottom of our eye and the center of our Gates of Hell tetrahedron falls at 19.5 degrees north, one of those cosmically significant latitudes where interesting phenomena are found throughout the solar system. Neptune's great dark spot, Jupiter's great red spot, Olympus Mons on Mars, the tallest volcano in the solar system. The 19.5 degree latitude is the plane of intersection of an inverted tetrahedron inside a sphere, a geometry that is linked to enhanced energy at the intersection points. On Earth, the 19.5 degree latitude passes through several volcanoes. Anchored on this powerful latitude by the Hawaiian volcanoes, we find a third tetrahedron, formed from a perfect equilateral triangle stretching across the Pacific Ocean. The southern point is created by New Zealand's Tongariro volcano, the most sacred mountain in New Zealand to the indigenous Maori people. Tongariro is a volcanic massif that includes two other active volcanoes, Naraho, which last erupted in 2007, and Ruapehu, which has been waking up just recently. Tongariro itself just erupted in November 2012 for the first time in over 100 years. Our third point lies to the east, dormant Terravaka volcano on Rapa Nui, Easter Island. A triangular island itself, whose oldest name means both navel of the world and land's end. This ancient hotspot, the most remote inhabited island in the world, is home to one of the world's greatest mysteries. How its ancient people carved and transported the giant moana, standing heads that litter the island's perimeter. The center point of our tetrahedron is a tiny island named Moorea, near Tahiti, that resembles a heart-shaped anthurium flower with a towering volcanic plug rising up out of the center of the island, a remnant of its formation several million years ago. Moorea contains many ancient mare, temples and stone pyramids. And if you dug a tunnel through the earth and exited at the other side, you would find the Giza pyramids in Egypt. Each of these islands are very old and are constructed by overlapping flows from different volcanoes. A few of note include Sacred Mauna Kea in Hawaii, which at 14,000 feet is the tallest mountain in the world if measured from the ocean floor. It's home to Pele's rival, Poli'ihau, the snow goddess, and is holy to Hawaiian people as the navel of the universe. Even modern-day Hawaiians throw their children's umbilical cords into sacred Lake Waiau, the world's highest permafrost lake, not far from the many observatories now located on the summit. On the island of Maui, we find magical Haleakala, House of the Sun, also considered sacred to Hawaiians. Located on New Zealand near Tongariro is one of the world's largest supervolcanoes, Taupo, whose gigantic eruption 26,000 years ago sent the world into a global winter, and who is said to be due for an eruption in the not-too-distant future. About halfway between New Zealand and Hawaii, we find Savi, said to be the soul of Samoa, and Ta'au, known as the birthplace of the Polynesian people. Now we have a third tetrahedron, located halfway between the other two, defined by numerous volcanoes whose stories relate to creation and the divine feminine. This area of the world is also associated with a mythical lost land that has captured imaginations. Lemuria, older even than Atlantis, said to have been inhabited by very high vibrational and loving beings with extremely advanced technological capabilities. Lemuria is also rumored to have sunken into the sea after its inhabitants became corrupted. Have we stumbled onto a clue about this lost civilization? Is this a counterpart to the Atlantic Ocean's divine masculine? If we draw a line from Moorea, the center of our creation tetrahedron, through Ta'au and Savi, the birthplace and soul of the Polynesians, we find that it anchors on the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron at Sri Lanka. If we mirror this connection, reflecting a symmetrical line east across the Pacific, we find that it travels across the Yucatan to anchor on the eye of the Gates of Hell tetrahedron. Brushing against the tip of Florida in the western corner of the Bermuda Triangle at Bimini Road, if we extend the lowermost margin of our creation tetrahedron from Tongariro through Easter Island, we discover another connection to the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron, a byway that is anchored on Sri Lanka from the opposite direction. This line passes again through the African volcanoes Nyamuragira and Nyiragongo, through the Serengeti and Nairobi. We've already seen that the center of the eye on the Gates of Hell tetrahedron is on the same 35-degree north latitude as Fuji and Kunlun of the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron, and that the base of the eye is the same 19.5-degree north latitude as Hawaii of the creation tetrahedron. If we extend additional lines from the top of the eye at 48 degrees north and the center and the top of the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron at 22 degrees north and 45.5 degrees north, we discover that our three geometries are connected via a symmetrical highway of sorts that wraps around the northern hemisphere. Again, what does this all mean? Through our exploration of volcano mythology, we found three significant archetypes that have to do with travel to other dimensions: the cosmic tree whose central axis connects all the worlds, the gates of hell which serves as a portal to the lower dimensions, and the creation center of the world, which connects us to the earth wisdom. The legacies of these key volcanoes define physical locations on the globe, tetrahedrons, sacred geometry whose shapes not only symbolize the archetypes themselves, but also appear to have an energetic, three-dimensional quality to them. These tetrahedrons are connected in various fascinating ways that link mysterious places, powerful cities, and ancient sites all around the world. Could all this just be coincidence? Or is something greater and more mysterious at work here? The cultures who preserved these mythologies are separated by large physical distances, yet they share many similar traditions and stories, held within an animistic framework that is based on a belief in the divinity of nature and the powers of humanity. These cultures are each richly rooted in ancient shamanic practices, whose common core views everything as energy, including our bodies, thoughts, and experiences through time. Healing can be achieved using age-old techniques, practiced with the intention of achieving balance and harmony in our third-dimensional state. Many such communities that are connected with the natural cycles speak of energetic ley lines that encircle the planet, electromagnetic grids that can affect our physical reality. Extending back to Atlantean times, legend speaks of secret maps held within the high priesthood that charted these ley lines, mapping both the coordinates and mathematical systems through construction of pyramids, temples, and other earthworks around the world, as a GPS system of sorts. There have been numerous attempts in modern times to map the Earth's ley lines, the most well-accepted being the world grid developed by Becker and Huygens in the early 80s, built on compatibility with the Platonic solids, the 5 fundamental shapes who all have an equal number of faces meeting a vertex and can fit in a sphere. The world grid is created from a complex dodecahedron, icosahedron spherical geometry based on the work of Buckminster Fuller. The idea that the Earth is a giant crystal is not new. In shamanic worldview, the reflection of the macrocosm and the microcosm is part of the Great Order. Just like the crystals that make our rocks, the planet itself has a crystalline nature. In alchemy, the icosahedron represents water and the color blue, regeneration, and the dodecahedron represents ether and the color white, that which shapes and unites all material elements. They are a perfect alchemical match for planet Earth. Ancient Chinese stories are of Lung Mei earth energies, a white tiger and a blue dragon, whose paths circle the earth and can be harnessed and used for harmony and balance. When we overlay the world grid on our map, we can shift our shapes to see if the geometries overlap in any way. We find that if the axis mundi triangle is rotated slightly and dropped southwest, it fits perfectly on a node point of the western coast of Australia. And if the creation triangle in the Pacific Ocean is rotated clockwise from Easter Island, it's an almost perfect fit within the world grid. However, the gates of hell triangle does not fit as easily into this grid. Its base is too wide. The mid-Atlantic ridge running along the central axis of our gates of hell triangle pushes the European and North American plates away from each other at an average rate of 2.5 centimeters per year. Assuming that this rate has stayed constant through time, our gates of hell triangle would have fit within the geometry of the world grid around 26 million years ago during the Oligocene epoch, at the tail end of a major extinction event in Europe. 26 million years is also the average length of time between major extinction events, according to scientists. The reason for this cyclic reduction in species is not known, but has been attributed to everything from ice ages to volcanic eruptions to the seasonal passing of Nemesis, the Death Star. 26 million years is a fractal of the 26,000-year precession of the equinoxes, a cycle measured by an even smaller fractal, the Mayan calendar. The Mayans are a modern people that hold a very old wisdom. For thousands of years, they have employed 2 calendars simultaneously, a 13-moon, 365-day solar calendar, and a 260-day sacred Tzolk'in calendar. Unlike our Gregorian calendar that is based on our movement around the sun in linear time, the Mayan calendar system reflects a higher degree of synchronization to natural cycles, charting our connections to other heavenly bodies and preserving a more complex definition of time. Both quantum physics and astronomy confirm that time is anything but linear. In fact, the nature of time and space is one of the most poorly understood phenomena of the universe. Yet we know they are inextricably woven, a tapestry of galactic mystery. On December 21st, 2012, the winter solstice sun lined up with the galactic plane for the first time in 26,000 years, a time that marked the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new one in Mayan belief. 2 other major cycles ended on that date: the 104,000-year cycle of the fourth sun, as well as the 5,125-year long-count cycle of 13 Baktun, an age that coincides with many of the pyramids and ancient mysterious structures found around the world. The Mayan calendar itself did not end in 2012. It simply recorded a major transition in our location of time and space, a time shift, if you will. The Mayans believe that we are in the process of transitioning into a higher galactic frequency, which officially began on the 26th of July, 2013. The first day of a new calendar within the new cycle. When we remember our location in the fabric of time-space, we remember our cosmic connections, our relationships with other cosmic bodies, journeying together through the universe at breakneck speeds. Life on Earth is a precarious balance, maintained through a multitude of protective mechanisms. One of the most important is our magnetic field. Flowing through the poles to create a toroid-shaped cocoon, the Earth's outermost layer shields us from the solar radiation blasting our planet at 400 kilometers a second. It's really an electromagnetic field, created by constantly flowing molten rock in the Earth's core. Magma is an iron-rich, charged liquid, whose movement creates both an electric current and a magnetic field. The two are fundamentally inseparable, feeding each other into what scientists call a self-sustaining dynamo. In a sense, the core of the Earth is like her central nervous system, sending out a frequency that extends into the cosmos, interacting with galactic fields that exist at our farthest reaches. Some of the magma from the core travels in stationary, narrow streams to erupt at the surface in places like Hawaii, Iceland, the Azores, Easter Island, and Ethiopia, among many others. These unique volcanoes are called hotspots, and are unlike the majority of volcanoes, which have much shallower magma sources from subduction of one plate under another. Hotspots are places where the location of eruption has remained the same throughout time, despite movement of the plates on the surface. For example, old remnants from the Hawaiian hotspot can be seen extending northwest, tracking the movement of the Pacific plate for the last 80 million years. We don't actually know how old this hotspot is because evidence is currently being subducted under the Aleutian Trench. Some of the most sought-after hotspot eruptive products are called kimberlites, ancient rocks that host our world's supply of diamonds. This type of unusual and mysterious volcano no longer erupts, having left only evidence in the form of unusual craters and eroded necks that magma once punched rapidly and violently through tectonically stable areas from a very deep source. If we examine the locations of kimberlite volcanoes, we find that they correlate with the Vesica Pisces shape we explored earlier, adapted here to a different map projection. The oldest kimberlites date back 320 million years ago, exploding through the center of supercontinent Pangaea. So it would seem that kimberlites are connected both to an ancient symbol of creation, as well as to the birth of the continents as we know them. The central kimberlite axis also corresponds with the western edge of what scientists call a large low-velocity shear province, an LLVSP, basically a huge, very hot area in the center of the Earth called a pile that floats on top of the core. We know of 2 such ultra-hot zones, this one under Africa and one under the Pacific Ocean. In the middle of the Pacific, 2 piles are colliding to make an ultra-low velocity shear zone, creating the Samoan hotspot, which we recognize as the exit point of our creation tetrahedron and the soul of the Polynesians. It stands to reason that these hotspots must create an internal grid of enhanced electromagnetic energy, veins of sorts, that are constantly carrying information from the unseen depths of our planet to the surface. These volcanoes have the unique ability to project energy from the center of the Earth into the far reaches of our atmosphere through their eruptions. Could the hotspot network somehow regulate our magnetic field? Without a magnetic field, life on Earth could not exist. We would quickly succumb to the solar winds, becoming like Mars, who once had oceans and an atmosphere, volcanoes, and a stronger magnetic field than ours. This evidence is preserved in ancient lava flows, whose mineralogy allows us to measure the strength and direction of the magnetic field through time. On Earth, the best data set we have to evaluate past changes in our magnetic field is the Hawaiian hotspot. And it turns out that our magnetosphere is inherently unstable. Every 250,000 years on average, our magnetic field switches directions, an erratic phenomenon called a pole shift, whose mechanism and timing is poorly understood. When a pole shift happens, the magnetic field temporarily decreases to zero, a situation that is sure to have consequences for life as we know it. The last pole shift was 780,000 years ago, which means we are overdue for another one. And recent research indicates our magnetic field is rapidly and alarmingly decreasing, with localized reversals already happening in the South Atlantic. The most common way we measure the fluctuating magnetic field is by magnetic declination, the degree that magnetic north deviates from true north. Magnetic declination is changing all the time, as the north and south poles skate across the polar ice caps at rates up to 55 kilometers a year. When we look at changes in magnetic declination over the last 400 years, we can see the dance of the magnetic field with time. When we overlay our tetrahedrons onto this map, we start to wonder if perhaps they are related. Watching the zero lines in particular, the places where magnetic and true north are the same, we notice some interesting relationships. One zero line always stays anchored on the axis Mundi star tetrahedron, yet skirts around it as if watching water flow across a shallow river bottom, ebbing and flowing as the magnetic field flows through the center of the Earth, out from the South Pole around and back into the North Pole. On the other side of the world, the zero line settles in North America, gradually steepening the gradient over the creation tetrahedron in the Pacific Ocean. Our tetrahedrons are anchored by hotspot volcanoes. Does magnetic declination somehow chart the flow of electromagnetic energy being generated by these channels of magma rising from the core of the Earth? When we add the two LLSVP zones we talked about earlier, those continent-sized masses of particularly hot magma that float around the top of the core, the possibility grows of a connection between the molten interior topographies of the Earth to our hotspot tetrahedrons and the magnetic field. Magnetic main field intensity is a measurement of the Earth's total magnetism as measured from the surface, a combined field that results from both interior processes and solar winds, ionized currents that are constantly blasting our planet. In a sense, the main field intensity is a measurement of how the center of our planet communicates with the sun, which also fits with NASA's recent discovery that dozens of portals a day spontaneously open inside our magnetosphere, allowing solar energy to flow freely into our atmosphere. We again see a connection when we overlay our tetrahedrons, most notably in the localized highs and lows that occur around the axis Mundi star tetrahedron, and the broad low that occurs between the gates of hell and creation tetrahedrons. Is it a coincidence that the magnetic field deflects solar radiation way out in the far reaches of our planet, while basaltic rock deflects radiation here on the surface? do the hotspots that define our three tetrahedrons also define some kind of electromagnetic frequency that influences the envelope of life we inhabit? There are clues being presented all the time. One such clue can be found in a crop circle, those mysterious formations of elaborate geometry that appear overnight in fields, largely attributed to attempts by extraterrestrials to communicate with us. In 1991, a crop circle appeared in a field near Barbary Castle in the UK, known as the mother of all crop circles. A tetrahedron was superimposed with an ancient symbol, a circle surrounded by two rings, and three different circle-based shapes were attached to the corners. There was a small but noticeable kink in the western side of the tetrahedron. Although this crop circle tetrahedron is slightly narrower than our creation tetrahedron, when we anchor the center of the upper circle on our oldest active hotspot, Hawaii at 19.5 degrees, and align the two along their bases, we find that this notch corresponds with the line connecting Moorea with Sri Lanka, the exit point of the creation tetrahedron that is the birthplace and soul of the Polynesians, which we also just saw corresponds with the hottest location of the core. The three corner shapes of this crop circle are also related to creation. The pinwheel shape to the north has been interpreted as an approximation of the flower of life, the seed of all creation, a sacred geometry symbol found carved into several ancient sites, fitting for one of the oldest sites of creation on the planet. The choppy spiral is thought to represent the Fibonacci sequence, our physical world's approximation of the universal perfection found in the golden mean, extending from the tetrahedron at an angle of 108 degrees, a sacred number to many traditions. Its symbolism is also fitting for its location. Hinging on Easter Island, it's a mirror of the complex plate boundaries of this area in the Pacific. And the circle with a line is a shape that suggests the limitless possibility of new life emerging from the egg. This line is exactly the length of New Zealand when extended out of the same corner of the creation tetrahedron. If we draw a right angle from the end of this line, it connects Tongariro with the Axis Mundi star tetrahedron. The total area of this crop circle is 31,680 square feet, said in the Bible to be the size of New Jerusalem, a city of the Golden Age when God's kingdom is again to be returned to the people. In Genesis, it also says that the Ark of the Covenant, the highly sought-after and mysterious power source that connects man with divine, will again appear on the 17th day of the 7th month, the same day that this crop circle was formed. There is a theory that the Ark of the Covenant is the Holy Grail, associated with the inverted tetrahedron, the first womb, the divine feminine, a symbol of eternal life, an elixir for immortality. Could this crop circle be giving us a clue about the nature of this force and how we might access it? The circles emanating from the center resemble an antenna, as if the tetrahedron is emitting energy of a particular frequency. Is this a hint about the true nature of our three tetrahedrons? Is it possible that they function to broadcast the electromagnetic frequencies defined by their mythologic archetype? Are they somehow power sources that use magma pathways as energetic transmission channels? We notice that the direction of the pinwheel spirals over Hawaii is the same as the spirals we examined earlier emerging from the creation tetrahedron. Such clockwise spirals emerge from a central, counterclockwise spin, like a screw being loosened, pulling energy up from below. In this way, we can view the creation tetrahedron as a transmitter of the Earth's frequencies, her umbilical cord with humanity. On the other side of the world, the gates of hell tetrahedron has counterclockwise spirals emerging from a clockwise spin, as a screw being tightened downward, projecting energy from above into the Earth, a transmitter of cosmic frequencies onto the earthly plane and down into the core. The cosmic spine, connecting all dimensions and energies, would then broadcast all possible frequencies. Is it also possible that the pyramids, obelisks, and other structures found around the world were built to harness and manage these powerful fields? It is clear that our ancestors were highly advanced in their understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and physics. 5,000 years ago, they were employing unfathomably complex engineering to create architectural masterpieces that still stand today. What was the true function of these places? There is a clear link between many of these ancient sites and celestial alignments. It is also thought that properly aligned geometric structures such as pyramids will harmonize with the cosmic forces, creating a force field whose power is available for direction and use by the Earth's inhabitants. Could we have found a map to the Earth's energies that our ancestors once understood how to navigate and tap into? Or, again, is this all just a coincidence and fanciful thinking? Or could we be witnessing a meeting of modern science and ancient knowledge, both of which are speaking the same truths with very different languages? In legend, the energies spiraling around the planet are often separated into their masculine and feminine parts. There is a well-known map on the internet called the Planetary Chakra Map that does just that. Just as we humans have chakras within our bodies, the Earth too is thought to have chakras that regulate the flow of masculine and feminine energies within. It is not clear how this map came to be, but when we overlay it onto our map, we find that it correlates with the thermal anomalies, the LLSVPs, at the core of the Earth. The ley lines of the chakra map follow contours of cooler material that surround the hotter LLSVPs, like an infinity symbol of energy circulating around the most fiery parts of the Earth's interior. The intersection of the masculine and feminine ley lines in South America at the second chakra corresponds with an unusual geoid anomaly at the same location, a localized measurement of spherical displacement at the surface of the Earth. The only other geoid anomalies correlate with the LLSVPs below. If we drew a line through the center of the Earth from this location in Bolivia, we would emerge near the center of our Axis Mundi star tetrahedron. It is also said that this location in Bolivia is the new home of the Earth's Kundalini energies after a recent move from the mountains of Tibet. When we overlay our tetrahedrons with the chakra map, we find that, again, the Axis Mundi and creation tetrahedrons fit perfectly within this flow, but the gates of hell tetrahedron does not seem to be as aligned. Let's return to the idea that the gates of hell tetrahedron represents a doorway into the shadow of the divine masculine, a power source of lower frequencies, a portal into the dark realms. For many centuries, the feminine voice has been silenced and devalued by such a masculine force, which rules through ego-driven fear and power. As if seeing this process unfold, we watched the magnetic declination of the Pacific Ocean lose its connection to the creation tetrahedron as the gradient steepened over the last 400 years. Interestingly, this is the same period of time in which the Freemasons and Illuminati became powerful secret societies, associated with the symbol of an eye inscribed inside a triangle, and whose members are also members of the ruling elite. This is also the same period of time in which Europe and the United States emerged as leaders in global affairs, influencing standards, spirituality, and thought patterns around the world. Could this symbol point to the source of their power? Do our tetrahedrons function somehow to affect our collective consciousness? Electromagnetic frequencies emitted by our tetrahedrons would be powerful enough to encircle the globe as a worldwide grid of a particular transmission. As beings of energy, we would be profoundly affected by such transmissions. We are intimately connected to the rhythms of the Earth. The envelope of atmosphere we inhabit between the crust and the ionosphere pulsates with a frequency required by our brains to function properly. Called the Schumann resonance, this vibration is like the heartbeat of the Earth and is even stimulated in space for astronauts. In the 1940s, Nikola Tesla discovered that by using an antenna to tap into the Schumann resonance, he could generate limitless free energy, sustainable broadcast power that any device could use to function. We are also connected to the magnetic field through magnetite and cryptochrome proteins in our cells, which regulate our internal compass and circadian rhythms. the same mechanisms that allow animals to follow migration patterns every year. So as the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, her heartbeat is quickening, and we feel these changing electromagnetic fields through our bodies. Our bodies connect us to the Earth's molten core. Everything we experience, see, touch, taste, feel, is energy. Our illnesses are energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our happiness is energy. Everything within us is vibrating and can be projected out as electrical impulses, frequencies that interact with the frequencies around us. As we evolve in technology and consciousness, the frequencies around us are also changing. We have introduced powerful yet invisible man-made electromagnetic fields into our sphere, cell phone towers and wireless internet, airport scanners and Bluetooth, low-frequency radio waves that affect us just as much as the animal populations they are threatening, whose lifeline to the Earth's vibration is being disrupted. Facilities like HAARP blast the ionosphere with directed radio waves, energy that has the potential to change the weather and even cause earthquakes. Undoubtedly, this kind of manipulation is affecting the Earth's background frequencies. There is a very real shift happening in this world as we gallop headfirst toward the brink of catastrophe. We are being forced to remember our connection with our Mother Earth, to find balance between the masculine and feminine elements. We recognize that our salvation as a species is dependent on our ability to help heal our relationship with her natural cycles. Perhaps it is time to start looking to our ancestors for help in navigating this precarious situation. Through their stories, we find energetic links to the past, currents across the rivers of time that can help us in steering the rapids of change. Our tetrahedrons affirm the value of mythology. Nestled within the otherworldly tales that define their creation are mysterious secrets about our universe. Their stories are mirrored in their shapes. They fit in the world grid, align with mantle topography, appear to affect the magnetic field, correlate with the Earth's chakras, and quite possibly have had an impact on the world's geography, culture, politics, and history. They are also geographically connected to 3 great mythical lost civilizations: Atlantis, the divine masculine; Lemuria, the divine feminine; and Mount Meru, the spine of the universe. It seems that these tetrahedrons are 3-dimensional, real places, source points of enhanced electromagnetic energy, broadcasting frequencies that may even impact our collective consciousness. If the Earth has a pulse, then surely magma is her blood, the rhythm of her beating heart, the dance to which our own lives are created, felt in every volcanic crater, every unfolding flower, every blinking eye. It would seem that ancient cultures once shared a unified vision of an energetic component to the Earth that we have largely forgotten in our modern hustle and bustle. What unknown forces are operating in the center of the Earth? How do we again begin to understand and communicate with the powerful electromagnetic fields of our planet? The way of science is exemplified by a facility in Geneva, Switzerland that is experimenting with the very fabric of space-time. CERN is the world's largest proton accelerator, a 27-kilometer circumference circle, 100 meters underground, that initiates particle collisions at nearly the speed of light. This process creates a charged ring that generates a magnetic field strong enough to interact with the Earth's magnetic field. There are many unknowns in these experiments, and director Sergio Bertolucci has been quoted as saying, "Out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it." CERN also happens to be located right on the gates of hell tetrahedron. As science pushes the boundaries of our understanding of the natural world is pushing back. We are being called to expand our awareness and capabilities, to broaden our definition of science and our perceived limitations of technology. We are being called to again learn to speak the universal language of the heart, to hear the voices of indigenous communities, to connect ancient and modern wisdom, to create a different reality. In alchemy, the tetrahedron is associated with fire. As we light the Kundalini fire within us, we connect with the fire of the earth, her energy rising through us as serpents of magma rise from the core, the primordial vibrations that lead us through the darkness. The dark goddesses, such as Pele of Hawaii, are associated with fire, with destruction and rebirth, reminding us that our mother can be wrathful as well as embracing. It's through individually reconnecting with her that we can collectively move from the shadow of the masculine back to the womb of the divine feminine, letting go of the fear of wrath to embrace the beauty within it. By tuning into this higher vibration through conscious intention, the creation frequency of love, gratitude, and abundance, we connect with her transmission to us, tipping the scales to achieve a more balanced, sustainable relationship with our planet. The earth is alive, and she is speaking to us. She is a giant ball of light, a crystalline entity, sailing through space, sustaining life through her breath of tides of death and rebirth. Are we ready to put down our weapons and change our stories? We have the power and the technology to generate free energy for every soul living on this earth. We have the power and the technology to provide healthy, organic food to everyone. We have the power to heal our waterways and our airways, our ecosystems, and our bodies. We have limitless power, accessible from the center of our hearts, a lotus that contains all the information ever seeded in the universe. In this time of change, this shift of ages, we are faced with infinite possibility, the very definition of creation. We are being called to learn how to truly love ourselves, and then we are being called to see ourselves reflected everywhere. A new golden age is possible only when we align our free will with the highest possible collective good, giving voice again to the earth. We are being called to change our ways, to look at our shadows, our self-defeating patterns, our addictions, and the wounded child inside us. It's time to embrace and integrate the darkness, to consciously transmute fear into love, to heal the divide between masculine and feminine, old and new. It's time for us to truly understand on a cellular level that we are integrated, intertwined, eternal beings of divine energy, boundless and endless. It's time to remember just how powerful we actually are when we are fueled by light and love.